This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is.
A couple of days ago I saw several images which will haunt me for years. One photo showed school children in a playground, each child confined within a chalk square drawn on the ground. The children were not allowed to play with one another, they weren't allowed to touch one another, they had to play games by themselves, several feet apart from anyone else. Try playing tag by yourself, the quickest game in the history of playground sport. No football, no games that require contact or getting closer than a few feet away, no racing around, screeching for no apparent reason other than the fact that you've got joy in your heart and energy to waste. You just sit in your soulless little chalk square. Another photo I saw showed children in a classroom sitting yards apart from one another, each child wearing a mask and a plastic visor. This is utter madness. It is also wicked cruelty. Back in the 1970s, I wrote the first popular book on how stress can affect the human mind and body. I would never have imagined that anyone could treat children in such a cold-blooded and damaging way. In the UK, it's now being alleged that if a child falls or has any sort of accident, then they must not be helped by other children or by teachers. The child who falls and grazes a knee will have to attend to it themselves. The child who accidentally wets themselves will have to deal with it alone. No hugs, no caring. Enough. The lunacy has gone far enough. Who in the name of all things holy thinks up these barbaric madnesses? We would be better off keeping schools permanently closed. Has anyone in authority any idea of the permanent damage this will do to these poor children? Children will be scarred for life by what's already happened to them. We'll be breeding a new race of weirdos, loners and psychopaths. Teachers are educated people. They should care about the science. A study by paediatricians couldn't find one case of a child passing on the coronavirus, not one. One boy who did have the disease failed to give it to 170 people who were classified as contacts. To be honest, my feeling is that if teachers want to protect children from dangers, they'd do better to insist that all children wear crash helmets in the classroom in case meteors fall on their heads. In reality, I think teachers should insist on opening up schools so that children can be taught again. And please, let's forget the daft rules. No stupid chalk squares, no plastic visors. Look at the science. Look at the figures we have. Look at the real evidence, not the hyperbole and the terrifying myth-making nonsenses poured out by power-hungry politicians and headline-hunting journalists. If we don't stop this nonsense now, in a year or two's time we'll find ourselves dealing with a generation of mortally wounded young people, unable to mix, unable to talk or relate to others, bewildered, lonely, confused, and in a quiet despair which they don't understand. And I fear that quite a number of them will turn out to be so disturbed that they become antisocial and even violent. We should either open schools properly or we should keep them closed. Those are the two choices.
First day back to school in this Swiss town after nearly a 2-month break, and there are mixed emotions. Classes are only half full, desks are regulation 2 meters apart, but still, you can't be sure.
I think we've had our dose of anxiety. The pupils feel it too, as well as certain parents, so it's difficult to get back to the way it was, but I think we need to trust the authorities.
In northern Italy, where the European outbreak really began, they're taking things even slower, not even using a school facility but a public gym as a pilot scheme, using a small group of 6 to 10-year-olds to see if it's even possible to socially distance small children who are used to wanting to be close together.
We have to find a way that these children can play together and we can go to work. We've now been at home for 2 months. Their grandfather can't take care of them every day, all day. They're still small. They need to be with other children. They really need this.
Same story in France. The return to work, to whatever sort of normality you call this, is leaving parents with hard choices. In Nice, they were doing everything they could to reassure parents.
We've done everything to make sure the sanitary rules are respected. We're going to spend a lot of time washing our hands, and we have to be attentive to the cleanups conducted in schools.
Many people desperately want their kids to have some structure back in their lives, and they're being asked to leave the house and work if they can. These are hard choices with uncertain science.
Ça va, je suis pas trop stressée.
I'm not that worried. I've explained to my daughter what needs to be done. In any case, I had to go back to work in childcare.
5 mois sans école, c'est un peu difficile.
5 months without school would have been difficult. That's what was scaring me.
Inevitably, there's a lot of pushback. In the UK, nearly 500,000 people have signed a petition calling on parents to have a choice about whether they have to send children back, potentially next month. And so too in France. The mayor of Nice couldn't agree more.
It's important for families to have a choice. For all the families who wanted their kids to go back to school, I've wanted it for them to do it in the best possible conditions.
Excited children? Totally understandable. Anxious parents? Equally so. In the new normal, it seems everyone has to accept, to some degree or another, that risk is part of life. Lawrence Lee, Al Jazeera.
Okay, in other parts of the world, with stay-at-home orders either being lifted completely with restrictions or strict social distancing guidelines, it gives us a chance to look at how we might approach things when we fully come out of our stay-at-home order. Last week, we looked at how other countries were approaching restaurant reopenings, coffee shops, other places to go get a bite to eat. But today, we're looking at what it might be like for children returning to school. Andy, do you want to start us off in France?
This week in France, thousands of preschools and elementary schools have started to open up. Classes will be capped at 10 students for preschools and 15 for elementary school children. And these images show how social distancing measures taken in the classroom and on the playground have been used to keep children far apart from one another.
School's already hard as it is. I mean, this seems like, honestly, this seems like bullying. This will eradicate bullying entirely.
Look at the psychological impact that an adult has context and can understand why that you would have to do something like this, but they don't even have toys. They're just in these square boxes.
Have you ever seen Michael Myers? It's a Halloween. It's like a Michael Myers movie. It's the most recent one. He's like in a mental facility. No. And that's how they have him, in like a square by himself with a bunch of other people in the same facility. The same way you saw those poor little kids. Yeah.
After seeing the images, many parents wondered if it is actually in their child's best interest to return to school under these conditions. Before schools reopened, the Ministry of Health released sanitation and hygiene guidelines, which include things like social distancing, recess, as we saw in the photos, and recommendations to disinfect all toys and classroom supplies after every use. It just blows my mind. It is wild.
The optimistic side of me,
bizarre thing to live through,
wants to say that this is very temporary, and they will soon be able to return to normal. Well, who knows?
I hope.
Who really knows? Yeah.
But with in-classroom attendance currently not mandatory, it's left up to the parents to decide if they're going to send their kids into class. In an interview with the AP, one French parent said, "Truth is, we don't know if it's a mistake. We change our mind every day. We're trying to convince ourselves that if they are reopening, we assume the schools can handle it." In a survey conducted by several public and private schools in the Paris area, the majority of parents preferred to keep their kids at home until September while they waited to see if the evolution of public health.
Yeah.
Junior high schools? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I don't think that, is that junior high? That's not junior high. I was just going to mention in France as well, in France as well, junior high schools with regions of fewer virus cases will reopen May 18th. So they have a set date in about 4 days. High schools have yet to set a date. Sorry, what's going on in China?
Schools in parts of China have had a couple more weeks of implementing the new process for returning to school. This is how it looks. These videos show how children are being sanitized and having their temperature checked before entering school. And these pictures show what classrooms look like. Kids wear masks or in protective plastic boxes, or wear special hats to keep their distance from one another.
This looks a little more fun than it did in France. Like, these kids seem just like They're vibing with it, honestly.
I don't know. Like, what is that, though?
And the way they make the tools look, they look kid-friendly. A little robot with the hand sanitizer, checking his temperature.
Terrifying. This is... The psychological impacts on this are... I'm sure we will know 30 years from now. All the COVID babies.
Temperature, right.
The temperature check. Going. There you go and stand here. You get sprayed off. I mean, the other kid was like sticking his face in what I assume is some kind of disinfectant material. That probably, or disinfectant spray. It's probably not good to breathe in. And then they have a robot, I assume, that the kid was looking at. I don't know. Julie asks, wonder if kids will fear getting too close to each other. Will hugging and touching each other become a problem when they grow up? Will intimacy be an issue? Will they become extreme germaphobes? I think those are very